I remember this always kind of floats around the web every so often, and they interviewed I don't know thousands of people on their deathbeds, and they asked them like what was the one thing that that they wish they could do, sort of thing. Was the one thing they would change? The answers were mainly that they didn't get to do all of the things that they wanted to do. There was a regret there. G'day, Shane. How are you going?
Good, thanks, buddy. How are you, Dex?
Yeah, pretty good, thank you. Pretty good. Can't complain. It's a Friday here, so it's a good day. It's a good day.
Friday.
Do you know that people say that the happiest day of the week for most people is a Friday? Do you know that?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people seem to plan for the Friday, right? When do I get out of work? Yeah.
All right.
Understand.
So what we're going to do today is we're going to do something a little bit different. We've spoken about a whole bunch of topics, I think the past 11 episodes. And today we're going to switch things up a bit. So we're going to be playing a game that everyone knows and that I always play with my kids, which I find a lot of fun. And it's basically called Would You Rather? And I'm going to ask at least one question. I'm going to see how long we can go for this single question for.
Okay.
And the Would You Rather question is going to present two different sides, of which are going to be as equally as tough to answer, I guess. And then you and I are going to do our best to answer it. Now, it's not going to be, I don't think we do this debate style. I think what we're going to do is just flesh out both options just to see how they feel. And we're going to try a bit of tech as well. I'm an IT guy, and I just started this, and it seemed to work okay. But, whenever you hit record and do something, there's a chance that things will stuff up. So at some point, I will share my screen or one of the screens. And so for people that are listening, you won't be able to see this. But if you're watching, you will be. Okay.
Just so you know, I'm a junior to this game. I haven't played this before,
okay.
But
it's easy.
I probably have in my mind, I guess, but not with other people.
No problem.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first question, Shane. Now, I'll give this to you to answer first, and whichever answer you pick, I'll help you answer that as well. And I'll share my screen. Would you rather... Actually, I'll share my screen now. Hang on. Let's do this. Wonders of technology. Entire screen. Okay. You just let me know when it's up on your side. You can see that now?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So the first question is, Shane, would you rather know the exact date you die or let nature take its course?
Okay.
Would you rather know the exact date you die or let nature take its course?
It's a bit of a conundrum, that one.
Yep.
I would let nature take its course.
Okay.
Initially, that's what comes as a gut feel to me. And I think that's because I think it's a funny thing. For the last decade or so, my kind of outlook has been live each day like it's your last, but you don't want it to be your last, right? So for me, I don't really want to know, but I do want to kind of keep the perspective that we don't know what's going to happen. And I remember when I was a lot younger in a working environment, there was a guy that his whole outlook was always on, I'm going to be here for the next 50 years. So he would always be planning for tomorrow only, and I would say to him, what did you do on the weekend? And he said, oh, nothing, just kind of sat around and didn't do much. And anyway, he was always focused on taking all of his pay and putting it into an investment, which is very clever. At the same time, there was someone I work with, which was a bit of an older guy, and he was probably about 10 years from retirement. And his whole thing was work, 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 and even on the weekends he'd work, and he was always waiting to retire. the terrible thing that happened, he retired 5 years after he retired. He passed away,
Wow.
and he kind of never really enjoyed the time that he had while it was going. And this always kind of sat at the front of my mind, that we don't know what's going to happen the next minute, and so. I don't really want to know when that is, but keep the perspective of we don't know if the next 5-10 minutes it might not be, we may not be here. So don't leave any stone unturned. Any relationship you want to have work, make sure it's in the right place, and so that's always kind of stuck with me, those earlier kind of experiences with other people, and yeah. So I think for me, nature.
Okay. Okay. So it's more of a maintaining status quo, I guess, is probably the answer there. Status quo. Now I'm going to try and persist with this typing for a couple of minutes and see how we go. We are experimenting here, and if it doesn't work, I'll just turn it off. Now that's, I share the same perspective with you, but in listening to you talk about that story, I wouldn't say I'm inclined to change my mind, but I'm fast forwarding in my head at the potential chaos of people knowing exactly when it is that they'll die. So I am sticking with what you said of letting nature decide, and I have heard similar stories like what you just said. People saving up for a rainy day, only for that rainy day never come for them for unfortunate reasons, and it's always after the fact that you look back and go, well, if they had known of that date, then they probably would have lived life differently. And I think that's almost the question, really. If you take a step back, the question is almost, are you happy with your life now, or would you rather have a different life based on information that you've got? And for some people, obviously, depending on what's happening in your life at the moment, they might actually pick the other answer. They might want to know because they can do certain things knowing that there's only X amount of days left. And so I should, maybe I need to travel, maybe I need to experience this, maybe I need to eat that, maybe I need to tell this person this. But then, knowing the exact day is almost it's basically a death sentence. Like that's life is a death sentence essentially. But people that are on death row, like that's exactly, sometimes they don't know the date, but once they know the date, then the clock's ticking,
Yeah.
So before I hit record, I thought this was going to be like an easy podcast to record. But now I'm thinking that the spreadsheet isn't a good idea, which I might actually drop now because I just want to chat to you about this one because this is a difficult thing to. It's actually a difficult thing for me to comprehend. Because I love. Don't get me wrong. I love life now, how it is. Not all aspects, obviously. I don't think everyone can say I'm happy in all aspects of my life, but it's overly positive for me. I'm overly happy with how life is going. Now, if someone were to tap me on the shoulder and say, "Hey, this is the truth, and you're going to die on this day," would it make me any happier? Oh, wow. I don't know, to be honest. Obviously, if it's going to be like when I'm 120 or 130, like great. But at the same time, I'm almost thinking to myself, if I was told that and I was going to live a long life, I probably I don't think I would change my life much because 100. Let's just say it's 150, just for 100. Let's just say it's 100, right? So that's 50 years, right? I'm almost 50. That means that I'm halfway to my life. 50 years is a long time, right? By any stretch. And I'm like, oh, I've got another 50 years. That's good. I'll just keep going.
Yeah.
But if they said I had 5 years left, then all of the things that I wanted to experience, I'd bring that to the forefront. I'd make sacrifices to be able to get the most out, and so in one sense, having or knowing when that date is, you could say that you will have lived a more fulfilled life because you got to experience the things that you wanted to. I remember this always kind of floats around the web every so often, and they interviewed I don't know, thousands of people on their deathbeds, and they asked them like, what was the one thing that that they wish they could do, sort of thing. What was the one thing they would change? I can't remember the exact verbiage, but the answers were mainly that they didn't get to do all of the things that they wanted to do. There was a regret there. So the answer then becomes, if you knew when you were going to die, then given you had all of the resources, you would set about your life to achieve as much as what you wanted to do, which can be seen as a positive. And on the flip side, if you don't know, then you could be lax about it and go, you know what, I'll get to that next week. I'll get to that next year. I'll do this in 5 years' time. And that might not come. Yeah. So I'm a little bit torn, to be honest. I still think, obviously because, look, unless you're the type of person that will want to apply that kind of thinking, and look, there are that sort of people that are out there, like that want to know that they would want to die this particular date. I'm still siding with you with just letting nature decide. But now that I think about it a little bit more, you don't want to be on your deathbed thinking, you know what, I wish I did this. I wish I did this. I wish I said this to this person. I wish I experienced that. And so do you leave this earth with unfulfilled wishes, or do you leave this earth knowing that you got the most out of the time that you were given?
Yeah. I've always, and I think it's through experience, I've always kept that perspective of we don't know when, because even when I was at school, I remember the first person that I heard passed away that wasn't a relative or something like that, but someone in my circle in school. There was a guy, he was only in his middle teens. He probably would have been 16 at the time, and he was working on his car. He'd bought a car before he had a license, and we heard that there was an accident with his car while he was working on it, and he passed away. And you could never predict that, right? At a very early age, if he knew that he only had 16 years to live or whatever it was, would he have done things differently? Probably wouldn't have bought the car, but that's a very, very short time, and a lot of people in my younger years were passing away very, very young. I thought, even my dad at 38 passed away. He was only in the country. I think he came here for a better life to Australia, and he was only here maybe about 5 or 6 years before he passed away. Would he have done things differently if he knew he was going to pass away at 38? He loved Sri Lanka, but there were certain reasons why we had to come here, and we loved to come here because it was a better opportunity. So I think that's why it's always kind of given me that perspective of kind of live your life to the fullest, kind of believe that you've got a long life and do all those things that you love to do, but know that it's it could just be in the next 5 minutes that we're not here anymore. So spend it with the doing the activities and with the people that you really want to do it with. And that's always kind of stuck with me. I remember recently seeing this a preview for a movie, which is on my list to have a look at it. It's with Robin Williams. I think it's something like the title, something like The Angriest Man in New York, or something like that.
Yeah.
Something to that extent, right? And the premise is the guy's, he's probably in his 60s, something like that, and he's made a whole lot of enemies. He's a very angry man. Something happened in his past, but he's estranged from his kids, his wife, ex-wife, all of that sort of thing. And he goes for a checkup, and someone gives him the news that he's only got, I think it's like a day or something left on the planet, and it wasn't. It wasn't the truth, and she wasn't the doctor, and she didn't know what to tell him, so she just said one day or whatever it was. It was less than a day. Anyway, he goes about trying to fix all the relationships that he destroyed, through his life, and that's not a lot of time that you have to kind of get all those things in order. But why does that become important to him at the last day on his on the earth, whether he knows it or not to be true? Why does that become kind of like the most important thing? They've like what you said, where they've interviewed people that are at end of their life, and they've talked about the things that they missed out on. But they always talk about the relationships and the people that they want closest to them, at the end of their life. It seems like, that's the most important thing that we have. And it's amazing how we make a mess of it during our journey, and it's kind of like the thing that we think about when we're kind of leaving this earth. It's interesting.
Yeah, you mentioned activities. I think that was one of the things that now I've asked this question to myself many times, but it's always been internal. So I haven't really had an opportunity to hear myself say the answers and or hear somebody else answer it, and it's taken a different perspective. But one of the answers that I put to is, if you did know the exact date, and this is just for me, this is for anyone really, is that here we are, you and I, talking about all the good things that people would do, right? Travel, experience things, have relationships and all of that sort of stuff. But on the flip side, if you think about all of the bad things that you could do, it would be chaos. It'd be chaotic. It's funny. There was a movie that was released only, I think it might have been this year or last year. You might have heard of it. It was about a lady who was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and I think she was happy. Like, I'm going to totally butcher it, but I do get the background of it. Now, I think she was married. I don't know what the state of her marriage was. I don't think she had any kids or anything like that. And so she got this diagnosis that she's got X amount of time to live. And so she divorces her husband and just like plays the game, sleeps around and does all of this sort of stuff. And I don't know if she has passed on or not, but I know that it was a true thing, and more power to her. But at the same time, if you're the husband, that kind of sucks. But if there was the ability to know that, it would be interesting to see what the world would be like. And I think, depending on which part of the world that you're from, it could be a little bit chaotic. Like if you're, if you get to a point of understanding of, let's just say, by the time you're 13, 14, that that you're only going to live an extra 10 years or so. Like that 10 years is going to be chaotic. You're going to do bad stuff if that's the kind of person you are, or you could do good stuff. I don't know, but it's one of those things that you have to play both sides, right? And I think there's a bit of control in that in the world, because if you do know how long you've got left, people are going to take crazy risks, especially on the last couple of days, last couple of weeks. They're like, you know what? I'm going to die. I'm just going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do all this crazy stuff. So as much as you and I are talking about the good things, should this happen, repairing relationships and experiencing things and all of that sort of stuff, you flip it over to the bad side, and there's like a lot of bad stuff that people could do if that was the case.
Yeah, that's very true. Yes, I didn't think about that, but while you were talking, it reminded me of kind of end of days or when people, they go into that survival mode. So yeah, 100%, they could certainly kind of flip the switch and kind of go nuts because, there's no repercussions really. I'm going to die anyway, so who kind of cares? It's kind of like... Like you said, I think it comes down to who you are. Maybe when the chips are down, it really shows, what are your true colours? Do you go into kind of that survival kind of mentality and just kind of go bananas, screw everyone else, I'm just doing this, or do you kind of go to the lighter side and kind of go, what's going to be my best life? The other thing too that I was thinking was, if you did find out that you're going to live to 100 or 120 or whatever it was, and you go, oh, that's fantastic, I'm only halfway through my life, but they don't give you the details that you're going to suffer for the other 70. Do you really want that, or would you kind of, if you had the choice, would you go, I'll have a shorter life, but it's amazing, or, a long life, and there's going to be quite a lot of suffering, and I think I'd want to have the details as well. If they were going to give me the date, I'd want to know that everything was okay. I don't look forward to suffering for the next 70 years.
Yeah, so. It is a weird question. And, you were talking briefly before about it depends on the person you are. And I actually think that having this knowledge beforehand will actually mold the person you are. Because we're talking about this, knowing who we are as people and applying the logic to us. But this is us.
We are right now.
Yeah, but this is us who we are right now, not knowing when we're going to die. But kind of like what I said before, if you're born and at some point in your early age or adolescence when you can comprehend things like death and that sort of stuff, and that could be, in your very, very early teens, if you know that you've got a shorter time to live, like how will that shape who you are as a person? Like there's going to be, if you are going to be, if you are going to have a shorter life, then there's a sense of urgency for everything. Depending on how short it is, like let's just say if it's, 50 years old or 30, like 30 is not, it's not old by any means. So what can you pack into 15 years? If you find out when you're 15 that you will die when you're around 30, and that might be the case of where, well, I'm not going to have kids, I don't have time for that. I'm going to travel. I'm going to do this, I'm not going to go to school. I'm going to try, I guess it comes down to having that information up front. Will at least in my opinion, will actually determine how the rest of your life is and how you become as a person. Because if it is 120, if you're 15 years old and said, oh, okay, I live till I'm 120. Oh, that's lots of time. I'll just live life as I see fit. But then again, it comes back to that feeling of, do you want to not so much end your life, but do you want to finish your time on Earth knowing that you did everything that you wanted, or at least had attempted it? Or in your deathbed, because you're sick and going, you know what, I should have traveled. I need to apologize to this person. I should have, done this and all that sort of stuff. And it's, I don't know. I'm so on the fence now that I've had someone to talk to about this, like at length. There was there's actually a bit of a morbid twist of this question that I used to ask friends, and I'll drop it now so we can talk about it a bit longer. But the variation to this question was, would you rather know the exact day that you die, or not know when you die, but be able to see when other people die?
Ooh.
I think there was a movie like there was like a Justin Timberlake movie where they each had like how long it is that they were going to die. But so the question is, like, will you see your own death clock, or will you not see your death clock but see the death clock of other people?
Yeah. Jeez, that's a hard one. I would have to say other people.
Okay.
Actually.
Okay.
For me, because I think it's a horrible thing.
I know, that's why. Well, they're not meant to be nice choices.
But I think the fact that you've got a certain amount of time with someone. No, even that's not great. But for me, it's kind of like the lesser of two evils. For me, I'd always have that at the front of my mind. Kind of thinking I've only got X amount of time with this person, but that's a horrible thing.
I know.
Yeah, I think that would certainly change the way I interact with them.
Yeah.
But you'd probably treat them like they're someone that's on kind of almost like death row, or someone that's got a terminal illness. Everyone around me is dying, and I know when they're going to die, and I'm the only one that kind of knows that secret, But for me, I think that'd be the lesser of two evils for me.
I'm honestly split. I'm still split, even with the original one. In that, I think what generally, at least me, what I am trying to strive for is to achieve everything it is that I want in life, and it could be a financial thing, it could be a career thing, it could be a happiness thing. It could be any number of things, but that's what I would like to say is a goal of sorts. Is what I would, at the end, on my deathbed, I would just love to say, I did everything that it is that I wanted to do, and I can die happy. Like I'd love to know how many people could actually say that, to say that they died happy. Yeah. And like ticking off every box, maybe the odd box here or there. But I think I would imagine that the majority of people would be like, you know what, I should have done that. I missed out on this, and so I would have to say that the majority of people will have gone, not sooner than they inspected, but had they known the time that they had, if they had a do-over. So let's just say that, a person dies at 50 and they get rebooted, and it's like, okay, you get to live life again, but you're going to die on the same day. What would you do differently? That life, that second life would be so different, and I think it would, and to compare the two, there's got to be a movie in this somewhere, right? Because I just see that again, because I'm thinking about this in a positive light. I'm thinking that 50 years is like, that's 50 years of me being a good person, because that's kind of my general disposition. Is like, I think I'm cool. I help people out. I love everyone. This is all good. But at the same time, if you're a bad dude, like that's 50 years of you just like, being really bad. So
battling.
And I'm actually really torn now. I don't know.
Yeah. I like to think of life like, when you book a holiday to go somewhere, right? There's a certain place you're going because you want a certain adventure. There's things that you're going to do while you're there. It's booked out for a certain amount of time. You might go there for 2 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it is. And which island do you want to go to? Which place in the world do you want to go to? So it's kind of like your life experience is kind of like that, before we get to this planet, we kind of have some sort of idea. There's something this probably goes back into that purpose thing, and But I like to think of it as you're going on a holiday, and what's the adventure that you're going to have while you're there? You can't predict. You might go to, say, Hawaii, and all of a sudden they've got a tornado coming in, so some tropical storm or whatever, but and your holiday may be cut short. You have to leave the island, right?
Yep.
So it's kind of like that. You've got the best intention. This is the adventure I'm going to have. This is the things I want to do while I'm here, and keep totally focused on that. And but you've got no guarantee that's going to happen, or there'll be ups and downs along the way, but we navigate them. But the thing is, we're not guaranteed the full trip. We don't know when that time is. I've always believed I was only going to be here till 46, so I'm here on borrowed time.
That's a really specific number, by the way.
It is. I don't know where it came from, but it just did, and I was so happy when I went past 46. But now I'm in this kind of realm where I go, I don't know when it's going to be now, and so up till 46, I was kind of ticking all the boxes and doing all those things. Now it's more focused on a lot of things that light me up more than anything than the ticking the boxes, and getting done what we have to get done. So I'm more on that kind of adventure holiday or island now.
So does that mean that your entire 46th year of being alive was hell? Because you would wake up and go, wait, this might be it. And then you're counting down like 365 days. And you're like, one more
Maybe
day?
that was the source of my depression. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that would be terrible. Okay, so getting back to the question that I asked you before, if I had to pick between knowing when I would die or seeing other people, I would pick. Honestly, I actually thought I had the answer, but now I'm thinking about it. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I actually would think that I would want to know me. I think. I don't know. I've got this vision in my head of it almost being a Hollywood movie where people fall in love, but oh my God, you've only got 29 days to live, kind of thing, and then it's like, no, I don't really love you because you're going to die. I'm going to be sad, and I think it might be just easier that if I was to know that I was going to live until 50 or 75 or 120, like there's less, there's less things. I'm sure there was either an X-Files episode on this as well. Being because could you imagine how depressed you would be walking around life and then just seeing numbers of people on top of people and go, oh, there's a kid there and that kid's got 5 years left. That's awful.
Yeah.
Okay. So original question then. So you're answering letting nature decide. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm pretty certain that's where I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's where I am too. I'm like 51% there, so I'm more sold on that than knowing. But I think I've got borderline ADHD, but that's okay. I don't mind that. But I actually
do we have some benefits of the knowing beforehand?
Yeah.
Like certainly there's some benefits, like you said, you can plan your life exactly what you're going to do. You'll certainly live it differently than you are at the moment, I think.
Yeah.
I would imagine I would, if I knew, because I guess that's just like anybody else that, is given, maybe some sort of terminal illness or something like that. They give you some expected date, and you start living your life differently. But for me, I think I would always, I'd like to think that I would live it more positively, but it would probably affect me in the way of a negative state where I'm kind of going, oh, woe is me, I've only got X amount of days left or X amount of years left, and me knowing me, that wouldn't be a positive outcome for me. So not knowing, I think, is the biggest benefit for me. So I think you really have to know yourself. If you would, then again, if I had 120 years and it was all joy, and
Happy
everything
days.
good,
Yeah.
happy days, yeah. But if it was the other way around, like I said, 120 years of misery, forget it.
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't think of it at the time, but you did mention, terminal sickness and how that's obviously a very real part of life. I'd love to know the mindset of people that get given a particular, like a short period of time left. And I'm sure you and I both know people that have been given, to say 2 to 5 years, but then go on to live 10, 20 years longer than that. So it's almost, it'd be interesting to see what happens in that initial 5-year window. You know what I mean? Like, let's just say it's 5 years. And, the first couple of days to weeks to months after that, like, how do they then process that information? What do they do? It's a bit difficult to get a good assessment, because normally when you get to those sorts of that sort of information, the person is usually quite sick. So it's not like they can then go, oh, well, I've got 5 years left. I can do this and I can do that. It's like, no, you've got 5 years because you're sick and you're probably in bed or you can't do certain things. So it's not it's not really a true indication of knowing when it is that you're going to die, if you're able-bodied and can do a lot of stuff. So it'd be really interesting. And I think that I would imagine, because I've not gone through this, but I would always imagine that, whenever anybody gets a date, and this is similar to goals as well, when people say that when you set a goal, you should set a date, just so that you have something to work towards. If you are terminally sick and they say, okay, you've got a couple of years left, so to speak, and then you start to get towards that, obviously internally there's all this stuff going in your mind. I'm just entirely speculating. But then once you get beyond that, I reckon that there's some sort of internal healing that you go, wait a minute, they gave me 2 years, but this is my 3rd year. Then the next year after that, it's like, I'm getting healthier. They said I gave, and then it's almost like, and I'm sure I've heard this before when I've heard people speak of this sort of experience. It's like they almost get a second life because they were given 2 years. It's now 10 years on. They're kicking goals and like everything's really good because they were giving such a short period of time. They got through it and now they're excelling, and it's almost that that feeling there of knowing, but then going beyond it. It has actually helped them get better. And had that been the same situation where the person was sick and the doctor didn't give them that prognosis of 2 years, I'd wonder if they would actually have gotten better as a result. You know what I mean? Because I'd have to imagine that there is a mental switch where if, it's kind of like, when you're a kid and someone says that you can't do something, you can't run this fast, or, you can't get that job, or you can't get this grade, and then you do it. You get this feeling of, I told you, and then it kind of builds momentum from there. It's almost the same thing. Here's your, this is the date, this is the time. Like for you, for example, like 46, right? Now, after 46, it's like, hey, I'm still around. Like, okay, at 48, I'm still here. And so now you're, it might not be as profound because, you weren't sick or anything, as far as I know. But for people that were sick, they were like, it's, and that's something that people will tell you. It's, they said that I was going to die 10 years ago, but I'm still here. It's a sense of pride. It probably gives them a lot of power. So it's, I can still see, but I'm still torn between the two, honestly.
Yeah. I've seen, two sides of the coin with that, especially with cancer. Quite a few people I knew passed away from cancer, and a lot of them pretty quickly. 6 months they were given.
Wow.
But I've seen and spoke to a lady while I was on holidays, and she had terminal cancer where they only gave her a few months to live. And she didn't want to take any radiation therapy. All the other people I knew that passed away did. And she had taken it, but she was a very kind of spiritual person. And she didn't want to poison her body. But what she decided to do was she decided to make the radiation therapy her friend, and she realized that the doctors were there to help her, and so was the medication and everything. And, I was speaking to her 5, 6, 7 years after she had gone into remission. And I think, there's a thing where we put the power in what other people say, or do we bring it back to ourselves? It's kind of like, where do you put the power in faith? Some people go, God will save me, and 100% of their faith is in there, not what the doctors say or whatever. And I think they've done studies about this where that seems to be like a huge part of it. They may say it's attitude or whatever it is, but it's kind of like that energy that you've got inside. It starts to change things. If you put all the power in what someone else says, and you think that's true, what they're saying, it seems to have some sort of effect. And I know this is going a little bit off topic, but in terms of the fact that like I was saying, if I was given a date, maybe I might be the one that kind of takes on what the doctor says, and he goes, oh, you've only got a few months or whatever. And I'll go, oh, no, But if I bring it back to me and did like my friend did and, was able to go into remission and, she's cancer-free. And that was all through bringing the power back to herself, rather than keeping it from someone else's, opinion, professional opinion.
Yeah. It's funny. The older I get, and this is a guy thing. I know it is for me. I know other guys are the same. But the less I want to go see doctors. Yeah. And this goes on to what you're saying. I know for me personally, and I'm going to relate this just for me so I don't offend anyone, is that I know a number of people that that have been diagnosed with certain things, and sometimes they feel fine, and they see the doctor because they're of a particular age, or it's like, you haven't seen the doctor in 20 years, you should go check. And they're like, why? I feel fine. Anyway, they go see the doctor and do some tests, and they say, next thing you know, oh, you've got this ailment, and it needs to be looked at. And I'm not saying that the doctors are lying, I'm not saying anything about that, but like what you said about taking, listening to other people and allowing them to assert their kind of opinion and power over you, which, look, it's fine. It could be true. And, a doctor isn't going to lie. But it's interesting to see how the change in people can, or how quickly a person can change based on that information. They could be 100% fine. And I know many, many people that do this. I'm fine. I just need to check up. Oh, by the way, this doesn't look right. You need to get this checked up. And next thing you know, it's cancer or it's something this. And, and then the demeanor changes. They're like, what happened? Oh, well, the doctor said this. And I am reluctant to go see doctors for that particular reason. Because at the moment, I feel fine. I'm close to 50. I exercise regularly. My diet is getting there. It's not the best. I know when I'm feeling off. And I get it as well. There's children involved, and people might be saying, "Oh, but you're selfish because what happens if you die and your kids are left in?" I get it, but I don't know how I would react if I saw a doctor and they said, "Oh, hey, by the way, this is what's happening, and you've got, a year to live," which happens to a lot of people. It's not a thing that is unheard of. You could probably ask 5 people, and that at least one of them will know of a person that went in to the doctors or got a checkup for something else because they've broken their finger and they've had to take blood or whatever. And next thing you know, they've come out with this diagnosis. Again, I'm not saying that the doctors do this, but they can only read what's in front of them.
That's
so,
right.
You know, I don't like to see them that much. I don't like the potential. Now, some people say, "Oh, well, if you're healthy, then you should have nothing to worry about." So most people that feel healthy still get diagnosed, and it's just a couple of words. And as much as I'd like to think that I'd probably act the same as your friend, I don't know. I wouldn't know if I would have that. I'd like to think I would, but I don't want to be put into a situation where I have to test. And I don't think it's even, you said it was kind of skewing away from the subject. I think it's actually part of the subject as well. It's not just, the doctor is basically telling you the exact date. They're giving you years, they're giving you months. And, how you decide to take that information is entirely up to you. You could clam up and just, and just count the days and just go, I've got now there's 4 months, or you could do maybe what your friend did and turn things around and change the mindset and go, okay, well, for those 6 months, I'm going to try as hard as I can, but that still doesn't get me any closer to what I would pick. In fact, now I don't know. I think, knowing the exact date is starting to look a bit better, especially now that I mentioned it and it's now gone into my head. When you throw kids into the situation, it becomes a bit different. It's your kids are a bit older than mine. Mine are getting there, and if you're a good father, then you just want what's best for them and impart knowledge and all of this sort of stuff. And you want to do that, in the fullness of time, as you remember, as they need to know that information. And if you knew an exact date, you could potentially do that. You could tell them this. Getting back to that movie that I was telling you about before, with the lady that had breast cancer and an X amount of months or years to live. I think it's the same movie, but I saw a short on Instagram about it, and she had. Sorry, I lie now. I think she did have a kid. I'm mixing up movies. Anyway, there was a scene in this particular movie.
New movie.
Yeah, where I'd have to find out this movie. There was a particular scene where the son discovered a key to, I think it was a like a storage unit, and so he took the key and he went to the storage unit and he opened it up, and it was gifts and milestone presents for when he was going to grow up, because the mother was no longer going to be around. Yeah, and that's cool. It's like I think the kid might have been, I don't know, say 15 or something like that. But there was like a car there. There was, advice. There was, like all of these, for when you get married and all this sort of stuff. And I thought that's a cool thing, like if you knew what your date was, and even if it could be short, again, I'm assuming that I'm putting it in I'm putting this on me, knowing the person I am. And I'm like, oh, I've only got this time left. I'm going to do this. I'm going to make sure that my kids know all about this. They know this. I'm going to say that, and then I can do the time happy, rather than just go, you know what, they'll get married whenever, or they'll do this. And, you said 5-10 minutes. Like, it could be as quick as that. And that would suck. So I think I'm now 51% on know the exact date now, then let nature decide.
Yeah. I'm much like you with the doctors, always have been. Not that I don't trust what they say, but I've always felt pretty healthy, and all I've ever got from doctors is bad news.
Yeah, I know, right?
I remember going to see a doctor, and he told me about my kidneys were really bad. I had some really bad heart disease, and you need to go on these tablets. That was over 30 years ago, and anyway, it felt like he was reading somebody else's tests,
Yeah.
which to this day I'm not sure if he wasn't. It sounded like someone that was heavily medicated on alcohol and 90 years old. Is kind of what he was saying as well. But anyway, I kind of digress with the doctors. Doctors have got their place, and I think if you're not well, certainly go and see a doctor. And but the thing is, and this is also a me thing, because I don't want to know the date. If I've got cancer, tell me I've got cancer. Don't give me a date, because that's only between me and my maker, really. And I don't think we should be measured against someone else. They may have all the clinical tests and everything that has gone before, and then when someone kind of beats that beats the date, it kind of is a miracle, or it's an outlier, or whatever it is. But the truth is, we're all different. So we would have a different attitude to the information that we're given. We act internally different as well, how we think and feel. So I think all of that has a bearing. And so you were saying you were leaning more towards you want to know. So what if a doctor did tell you the date, and if those things that you'd change, you could do them today though, right?
Yeah.
If you kind of had the attitude that, okay, maybe I've only got a very short time, how would that change your attitude and how you would speak and act with other people, your children, your relationships? And I think if you gave yourself not a final sentence, but in knowing that you may not have a long time, you'd probably start doing things differently. The things that you kind of focus on that you might spend a lot of time with maybe won't matter as much, and the other things that don't seem to matter as much all of a sudden will. And I know a little while ago I thought about what's going to be my legacy when I leave, and I thought, my kids are much older than yours and doing their own thing these days. So I don't see them as much as I'd love to. I'd love to see them every day, but the reality is they've got their own life. So what if, all the things that I want to embark on them, they kind of go into the grave with me, So they're obviously my legacy, but the things that I want to let them know, I can leave behind in the things that I journal, the videos we make, and I even thought of making a video vlog or some sort of video journal where all the things that I want to let them know and my grandkids know that aren't here yet, would be a really good idea. Because I can't do that after I've left, and but they can watch it anytime they want to.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's there's the knowing the exact date has to be in relation to where you are now and what you're wanting to achieve. Because that did strike me when it was like, yeah, well, like what's stopping me from doing the things that I just mentioned there from a dad point of view, giving my kids advice and doing all that sort of stuff. But then it's like, well, if it's a particular amount of time and I'm becoming a coach, you and I are coaches, we're wanting to do this. It's like, oh, is that all the time we've got left? Well, I'll stop that. I want to do this other thing as well. And that's where, it shapes so many things, knowing the time you have left, depending on if you ever get to find this out, it's, it could be something that's forced upon you or something that, a doctor says, but if there's ever a point in time when you're 100% able and know a particular date, the things you can achieve, you talk about legacy, there's, you can then plan for that sort of stuff. You can plan for these videos. You can plan for, okay, well, this isn't going to be the best use of my time, so I will stop that and I will start to do this again. there was a story I heard one. Oh, it was a while back. It's even hazy, but basically the context was it was somebody in, I think it was in Sweden. I think they have a sister dying over there, something along those lines, one of those sort of European countries. And it was basically, he'd kind of done everything that he wanted to do. I don't think he had kids, or he may have had kids, I'm not really sure. And then he was like, yep, today is it. And then that was it, pushed a couple of buttons, and, he had basically, I wouldn't say he achieved everything in his life, but he had gotten to the point where he thought that everything else, like he was done with being here. Not in a bad way, but in terms of like, I'm pretty happy, if it's painless and everything else, maybe we should maybe we should go down that path. But that's the one thing that made me pause, is that, okay, the kids thing, and then letting them know stuff, and then, spending more time with them. But then that will then go, okay, well, career goes out the window. That's it's almost like the first thing, right? It's depending on what period of time you have left, like 10 years, like, if people knew how much time they had left, how often would they spend time doing work? Probably not much, I would say.
Yeah.
And that's an unfortunate fact. And that's just, the fact is we don't know. And so we spend most of our waking lives, you and I are slightly different. But most people spend most of their lives at work, sleeping, traveling to and from work. And the little time that they have left is with your family. And that's kind of not right. It should be the other way around. But if it was a case of where you knew what time you had left, it would be it'd be a different story. The world would be a different place. If we had, I think other variations of this question was, if everybody had 100 years to live, which is a pretty long time, like, what would people achieve? I think the world would be a different place. If everybody had the same amount of time, like, regardless, to the point where if you died, you just pop back up again and continued on, something along those lines. Maybe not like that, but if everyone had 100 years, provided that nothing bad happened, but at the end of that 100, it was like, whoop, done. What would the world be like?
Certainly would be a different place. It's funny, you mentioned about you probably stopped working, and it brought up a memory. I was watching a documentary about a guy many years ago, and he found out he had terminal cancer, and I can't remember the whole premise of what it was about, but I remember this guy in the documentary, and he only had months to live, and every day he would turn up to work.
Wow.
And he was working in a recycling center. He had a daughter. I think he was divorced or whatever, but he absolutely loved what he was doing, and he would think of nothing else but getting up and going to work, and he did that till the day he passed. And I remember thinking that wouldn't be me, but I think the thing is, if you did know that you had only a short amount of time, that would bring into line what you really value more than anything, and I think that's why it's a really important question to explore for yourself. What really matters to me. Because when you've only got a short amount of time, you can't get it back. You can make as much money as you want. You can, create this, do that, do a whole lot of activities. But the time that you've got to do those things, it's kind of like the great decider. What do I really value, in the little time that I've got left? And although I love the work I do, I could see myself doing that in the last few days of my life, but I know it would always be a family kind of focus more than anything,
That's a terrific coaching question, by the way. Just asking that to clients to find out what your values are. It's funny you mentioned this, and we've almost been going an hour. That's crazy. But and you've just brought it up. And I'm just thinking about it now, and it's the one thing that as humans we we all have to do, most of us, the majority of us have to do is earn money, and if you knew, if you had a fixed amount of time, a lot of the things that we buy because we want them, or we think they're cool, or we think that other people would think they're cool, we wouldn't do that. You would just buy, well, I kind of just want, I just need food. If you're a foodie, sure, that might be part of your bucket list items, but why would you spend money on things that ultimately aren't going to, help you anymore, and that's something interesting to think about, that I would have thought that if given a short amount of time, it would be, well, whatever money I had, obviously to the kids, but I'm not going to go, well, I've only got, 6 months. So I want to buy this car that I've always wanted. I'm going to, I'm going to get this thing. And I think that a lot of people, I've heard this being the case for some couples as well, is that they're choosing to not have a traditional home life and buy a house, and instead they're renting. And what they're doing now is they're just traveling. They're all about experiences now. And it's and I think that is what could happen is, if you've been given that date, is you spend the majority of your time with experiences with your family, experiences that you've always told, that you've always spoken to yourself about, traveling, bungee jumping, all these things that are like, I'll get to it one day. And if you've been told, well, this is the time that you've got left, oh great, schedule everything in. I'll do this that time, I'll do this that time, because I don't need to own anything now. I just need to experience it before the time is. So it's funny that it's only just come up now, the financial part, because I think I'm almost there, in that there are things that I like, and if I had the money to buy them now, I don't think I would buy them. 20, maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, things that I like, and I just kind of want to have it because I think it's cool, I probably would have bought them. But now, as like the older I get, the more that I realize that it's materialistic stuff. I don't need this. I'd rather spend the money on something else. And I think having knowing the date, then when it's your time, you would get to that place pretty quickly. I don't need to buy this. I'll just rent it. I'll just borrow it for the one day, and I'll rather spend time with family, or doing something I love, whether it's for that that story that you told was going to work, whatever sort of lights him up. But I don't think that person would be buying things,
No, definitely. Yeah, that's a really good point. I think we forget through life, it is all about the experience we have, because we're so stuck in the doing of things as well. And, creating a life rather than just enjoying and experiencing the life. And we always, we started off talking about, it's Friday today, and most of the weekend is about the experience, and Monday to Friday is about the work, put your head down and get it done sort of thing. But what if every day was like that, doing your work, but doing the work that you enjoy? It's all about these kind of experiences, and ticking of the clock brings that back into perspective, that it is about the experience of life that we're really here for, more than the stuff. I love the stuff, but when you have to put it on a values list, it kind of goes way down. Yeah.
All right, Shane, we've just ticked over an hour. That went quick. So, final answer: would you rather know the exact date you die, or let nature take its course? You're saying
I'll take nature.
You'll take nature. Man, I'm still undecided. I'm probably, I know I said I was like 51% let nature, but I think maybe because my kids are a bit younger now. Oh, they're younger still. I'm probably going to go 51%, no exact date. I think that's
Okay, just over.
Yeah, ask me tomorrow. It might change. But before we go, Shane, if people want to get in touch with you, where can they do that?
Just on the website, awaken.guide.
Oh, there you go. Got
all the info's there.
Awesome. For the show Grit and Guidance, you can go to followus.gritandguidance.com. And for me, you can visit dex.thedecafnetwork.com. Thank you very much, Shane. I shall chat to you the next couple of days.
All right. Take care.
Mate. Bye.
Yeah.